distributed everywhere afterwards. I'm here with my good friend Paco Frias. We are going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about something that I. If there was a graph of my emotions pertaining this particular subject, it would look like the most wild roller coaster, just a gut wrenching experience. That's my probably my most vivid take on my experience with this so far. At least on my, and not even my experience, but also just my opinion on it, which is utilizing AI to do your prospecting to basically take over the SDR role. Now this is a fun topic because there's a lot of people that are talking about it. There's so many AI wrapped somethings, tools, services, thought leadership on prospecting, nurturing, enriching, lead gen, all those types of things. So we're gonna break some of it down, and I've used a lot of them. I've tested out a lot of them. I've been in this space for 10 plus years, so I have some opinions, and I'm excited to kind of dive into it. Paco, you startup, you're kind of like a tech founder now. You know that, right? Like you're one of those guys.
Yeah, when you said that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yes, at least in essence, I try. So yeah.
That's all we can do, right? That's all we can do is try for the most part. But for those of you that weren't here last week, this is week 2 of SDN Live, and what we do here, there is so much noise out there for the business owners, especially the small, new business owners. There's so much noise. There's so many options. There's so much messaging that is saying, hey, we could solve all your problems if you just do this thing, if you get rid of this thing, if you just try this thing, if you get rid of this thing. So we're going to break down a lot of those overhyped myths, overhyped trends, shiny objects, and we're going to talk about whether they are right for you, if they work, how they work, and when you should be implementing these things into your business, and maybe a little bit of how you should be implementing these things into your business so you don't have to waste the time and resources that we have on many of these things.
Yep.
This being one of them that I have wasted much of time and much of resources on AI SDR. So I'm gonna let's just overview. I'm gonna let you kind of explain sort of the premise of what an AI SDR agent tool stack is, and then we'll kind of go through sort of where it came from, why it's so hyped right now, and then we'll kind of get into kind of the right and the wrong and the good, bad, and the ugly.
Makes total sense to me. Yep. So look, very quickly, I also, by the way, as a extra for our awesome audience, I played around with Grok to get a little bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly of SDR AI technology, including some some funny and strange things that have happened. So we'll leave that at the end. So stay with us because you're gonna see some fascinatingly weird stuff that has been happening. So yeah, I mean, I think summarizing, as you said, Zach, with this incredible influx of everyone claiming, I'm saying everyone, of course not everyone, but a lot of people are claiming expertise, but not only expertise, deep expertise in a lot of different areas, very particularly when it comes to go to market, and more specifically when it comes to sales. And let's just call the SDR on this, let's just label kind of the entry level communication. That's what I would initially think people should be using this, even though, as you already started to hint, unfortunately, a lot of people are at least trying to replace the whole sales interaction with AI, right? And that is with a bot, an agent, which is really just a glorified algorithm with instructions that you're giving them on what to do and what not to do, what to say, what not to say, or a glorified chatbot, or whatever you want to say, if it's just a chat agent. But a lot of companies are now claiming that they can automate almost 100% wing to wing from the very, very scraping of the lead and trying to get all of the lead acquisition all the way through engagement and that cold messaging, cold calling, cold emailing, cold LinkedIn, blah blah blah, and all the way to closing the lead. So that's kind of what they claim. A lot of people claim, and you know, you and I have both replied very interestingly to a few of those claims in LinkedIn, X, and other platforms, because even though I respect everyone that is really trying, that's okay. It's okay to try things, but to claim deep authority on something that you believe you have absolutely changed everything with just trying, with one use case, with one contained moment in time, just for monetization and click purposes, I despise that, to be honest, right?
Despise is a strong word, my friend. But I agree. I agree 100%. Let's back it up because that's yeah, I mean yeah, and there's so much. That's just the time. I mean we've always been in that time. It's just kind of what what is the train that everybody's kind of jumped on
Mm-hmm.
at the time, right? There was CRMs when software first came out, when like cloud-based software first came out, everybody jumped on that. The dot com, everybody jumped on. Everybody had a company with dot com at the end of it, and then we saw how that ended. I don't know if this bubble is going to be that quite that aggressive, but that's yet to be seen. But let's kind of back up and it's like, what is the SDR role? Because there are some again starting business owners, first time business owners, or they're just kind of getting rolling. Maybe they're switching from okay, I don't want to just rely on referrals or my own outreach, my time manual outreach, networking, maybe that kind of stuff. I want to take more of an omni-channel approach. I want to be more aggressive, and I want to open up another lead gen source. And then you look at okay, so what is the actual function of an SDR? It is actually a fairly complicated role. You're a hunter, an investigator, right? You do a good SDR should be a master in their market because they have to be able to identify signals, buying patterns. They have to understand the psychology and the psychography of their ICP. So know who to go after, how to go after them, what channel to focus on, especially if you're big ticket B2B, maybe you're B2B SaaS. I mean you're you're looking at lead times or buying cycles of up to a year in some cases. When I was with Zerto before they got purchased by Hewlett Packard, some of their lead times were 9 to 12 months, but they were selling six, 700, $800,000 ticket um, ticket services and software. Um, so the SDR role itself, there's a lot that goes into it. With that being said, because there's a lot that goes into it. A, there's a lot of misconceptions on what the role really is, and also then B, there's a lot of opportunity or a lot of possibilities for one of those many facets that makes up an SDR to fall behind or to fall to the wayside, right? And there's been some interesting stats that came out since 2014, I believe. Uh, I believe it's since 2014 or 2018. I can't really remember. But the average SDR right now, if they're a full funnel SDR, so that means that they take prospects who don't have a clue who they are, their product or service is, and takes them through the buying cycle, whether it's to getting them on a discovery call with a dev team or something like a demo team or something like that, or an AR or something like that, or an AE, account executive, or they take them all the way through. So they go from I don't know who you are to I'm getting you on a closing call basically. So they're in charge of that entire process. And they're showing that SDRs they spend on average since 2014 about an average of 2 hours a day actually selling. The rest is on admin, research, data entry, all this kind of stuff. And then again, I mean, if you're in a sales, like a sales leadership role, you're probably rolling your eyes like, yeah, they're so lazy. They're supposed to make 100 calls a day or 200 calls a day. They just won't pick up the phone. All they're doing is sending emails. They're doing all this research. They're avoiding like the hard stuff. And then that in lies some of the issues with a human being doing that stuff. We are going to avoid. It's just naturally who we are. We're going to avoid the uncomfortable things. And sitting there and taking 200 cold calls a day and getting the phone, hung up in your face and saying, leave me alone, shut up, this is stupid, get a new job, all this kind of stuff. I get it. You would want to avoid that too. So they're only on average spending about 2 hours a day actually selling. The rest is on all this other stuff, right? The quality conversations per day have dropped by 45% since 2014. So their effectiveness, the overall SD role effectiveness, has dropped in some cases. Now, I don't know about the industry specifically. I do know that the SDR role in the home improvement space has dropped probably by more than that, their conversions. 83.4% of SDRs fail to consistently hit their quotas. So the churn rate in that role is crazy. So companies are spending a ton of money having to hire, and train new SDRs. And because you have this cycle of new SDRs, new salespeople coming in, new sales reps coming in, the training can get, you think because there's a lot of reps of going through the training, you think like, okay, the team in our process is probably going to get pretty good. But when you're doing it over and over again, there's some complacency. They're like, okay, you're only going to last 3 months. Why should I put in a bunch of effort? Right.
Yes.
So I think a lot of that does kind of play into those numbers being as abysmal as they really are. And then 87%, this is an interesting one. This is a new statistic for me. 87% of sales leaders are getting direct pressure from C-suite or board to deploy AI. So we're getting this like pressure to just start using AI because the competition's using AI. Therefore, there's this perceived, okay, if they're using it, we're falling behind if we're not using it, so just deploy it. Even though we don't even actually know how to deploy it, what makes it successful, nobody really knows how to use it. I mean, really, it's so new. If you claim to be an absolute expert in it, you're either a liar or I don't know. You should be getting paid a lot more. But
It's the
that's
ultimate
it's
hot
just the
potato
simple.
right now.
Pardon me. What? Say that again.
It's a hot potato, right? So
Yep,
people are
exactly.
just
100%.
throwing the
Hundred
the
percent.
digital hot potato. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a fun one. So the AI sales assistant market is projected to hit 67.36 billion by 2030. That's big. But again, you're seeing a lot of the trash being thrown out too right now. But anyways, I'm saying all this because the SDR role itself, the effectiveness of it has been declining. And it's not even just the effectiveness of the individuals in the role, because there's some very good, I know a lot of them. I wouldn't say I've necessarily been one of them, but I know a lot of them who are very, very, very good in that role. Although it does take a special person, and it's hard to replicate that. And you see a lot of companies that go through, oh, we need to hit these numbers, or we missed quota, or we just got funding, or we're getting pressure from the board, we're getting pressure from investors, whatever it is. We need to increase sales. So then they go on these huge hiring sprees of all these SDRs. They just shove them through training, and they're like, well, 50% of them aren't going to be here after month one. Yeah, another 40% of those are probably not going to be here after month three. So we're just flywheel. Let's just get them in, turn them out, whatever that is. And then they don't hit their numbers, or there's struggles. Maybe the funding dried up or whatever it is, and they're usually the first ones to get cut. Is whoever the new, I hired 200 SDRs. Okay, we got to fire 150 of them, and usually those other 50 they perform better than when there's 300 of them. But what I'm getting at is this role has been in this strategy, this sales prospecting, lead gen, funnel building strategy it's been declining in its effectiveness.
Yes.
And there's probably many reasons for that, but the fact that it is declining, there's so much emphasis on, okay, let's just make it, how can we make it better? How can we make it more streamlined? How can we use AI as a force multiplier? Using tech in general doesn't have to be AI as a force multiplier to make this role more effective, to make that strategy more effective. So I think a lot of those stats that I kind of gave you combined is really pushing a lot of, there's a big gap. There was a big gap there, still is, um, in making that role more effective. But I thought those were interesting.
No, that makes a lot of sense. There's several paradigms that we could, study a little bit more. So, for example, one of the big paradigms that I've been working on, current company that I met with, and some others that in the past I consulted with, etc., is the art of the lead generation. Because it is truly an art. Yes, you could probably boil it down to a science. I assume and guess certain industries are easier because, particularly, for example, when you have like big government initiatives where it's just a piece of the pie that you're getting and then you're just scraping the leads, that's way faster and easier. That's something that you just came up with, that it's a very good idea, but you have to convince a lot of people and you have to find those people that get convinced. in the middle, right? So the art and the science of lead generation is something where I do believe AI can significantly help. Uh, Up in the air still, if that can be 100% automated or not. That's a good discussion to have. But I could say, that paradigm, I continuously see SDRs, sales leaders, everyone on the marketing leader, like everybody hating that. I'll be honest. I don't know a lot of people that actually love, going and chasing the leads. Again, it's industry by industry, so I don't want to do it 100% overarching. It's impossible to do it. There are certain industries that it's actually a lot of fun to do that because you get to go to conventions and, and to the beach and whatever, and it's fancy, it's cool. But there's quite a few of that it's not, right? So that's where it gets interesting. On top of that, though, there's also significant challenges that we can talk about because it's interesting what you're saying of the decline. One of my initial thoughts, or at least a hypothesis that I have that I want to test, is the rise of spam calls, the rise of robocalls, the rise of spam text, the rise of spam email, and now the rise of spam LinkedIn and the rise of spam everywhere. Just let's call it the rise of spam, the spam rise, and it's terrible because all of us have suffered it, and I see it now almost on an exponential basis, unfortunately, because of the rise of AI tools that are doing that stuff, right? So even though there are laws where apparently you should not be, anti-spam laws, there's a lot of people that just get away from it, right? And just do whatever they need to do to get through it. So even though, number one, the hardware sometimes and the software goes against you because it either blocks you or it doesn't allow you to get in, or it just moves you to a other category where most people don't see it. So yes, that has been rising radically, in my opinion. So it becomes now more the art of discovery, I guess, or how to be discoverable, because it's not only if you are crafting a beautiful message to try to reach the audience. It's just it doesn't matter whatever you write. How do you actually get to the audience? Does that make sense? That's something that it's very interesting to look at, given all of these technologies that are converging at the same time.
Mm. Well, this is where, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we're in a trust economy right now. Like, trust is so low
Hmm.
right now. I mean, whether it's politically, trust is very low. Technologically, it used to be, if you picked up the phone, this is back in the day, and again, not that I agree with it. You picked up the day or picked up the phone back in the day, and you had somebody on the other end. They call it telemarketer, and if they had a thick whatever accent, you're like, ugh, you hung up the phone. Where now you pick up the phone and you can tell when it's AI. It has that twang to it. It has that little robotic kind of, like, I don't know if they'll ever get rid of it.
Hmm.
It's getting better, but like, people just know. It's really interesting how we're more connected than we think. I think like some of that is coming up because you can tell really quickly if you're paying attention if a call or a video or whatever it is AI, because you're like, that's not quite human. A human wouldn't quite say something like So your bullshit detector is just on all the time now. You're always like on alert. So you have a lot of that. However, that's a little bit, as far as like if you look at like an SDR, their role, that's a little bit further down the funnel.
Yes.
Then you have all this other work, like we said, they're only spending 2 hours a day with the ones that are still doing the calls, still sending the messages and that kind of stuff. They're only spending 2 hours a day doing that stuff. It'd
Hmm.
be like the fun action taking stuff,
Hmm.
right? But then there's all this other time, the admin, the data, the research, all that kind of stuff, where AI has actually been very useful
Hmm.
with that. So there's, again, I like to look at the numbers and this kind of stuff. So this is from between the improvements between now and 2018. So daily lead processing manually used to take 20 to 30, or no, they used to be able to process 20 to 30 leads per day, right? So that means you're going through, you're making sure that all the data is correct, that all the information, you're emailing an email that's still in service, all that kind of good stuff. On average, you're doing about between 20 and 30. Right now, when it's AI assisted, you're going between 100 and 150. So that's an increase of 400%. Time spent per prospect manually is 30 to 60 minutes. AI assisted 5 to 10. So you're getting rid of 83% of that time per prospect. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, we'll talk about that. But data, this is the big one. Data points analyzed. So that's intent signals. That's looking at what kind of market that your prospects in. What have they used before? What current tech stack are they using? Depends on what you're selling. Right now we're using kind of SaaS as the sort of the go-to example here. What kind of tech stack are they using? Have they used? What price points were they at? Are they? How's the business doing? Right? Did they just hire a bunch of people? How was this last quarter? Were they plus? Were they negative? What's the stocks doing? All these kind of stuff. So data points analyzed manually, 10 to 20. So you'd have 10 to 20 data points that you could analyze manually. AI assisted is 5 to 10,000 data points that they can analyze, obviously very, very quickly. So that's a 50,000% increase. Lead to meeting conversion. Well, this one was interesting. Lead to meeting conversion. This is from 2018 manual to 2026 AI assisted. So lead to meeting conversion manually in 2018 was 9.3%. 2026 AI assisted is 12.5%. So it's a 35% increase in lead to meeting conversion, which is a legit KPI that you track, right? So it's identified MQL to discovery, basically. Email response rate has increased by 150%, so it went from 5 to 10 to 15 to 25. I thought that one was interesting. And then cost per qualified lead went from $20 to $50 in 2018 manually to 5 to 15 now AI assisted. So that's a minus 70%, right? And then there's been a 40% reduction in manual labor costs. So again, going up, doing the research, all this kind of stuff. 20% increase in pipeline volume, and AI-driven lead scoring shows a 15 to 25% revenue uplift. So the elite performers, the elite SDR performers that are utilizing AI are increasing their performance by around 30%. That's what that means. So this is all. A lot of this is in the front end. I mean, the lead to meeting conversion I wouldn't really say that's on the front end, but a lot of that is in the front end. It's getting somebody from a prospect to an MQL, and a lot of that is being improved. It's showing with AI. However, that's not the part that a lot of people want to avoid, or think that they want to avoid. They want to avoid sending all the emails, making the calls, the texts, those types of things. They want to automate the entire thing. So, which is interesting because they start where they should clearly start, which is enriching the data, making better decisions on the front end so they can be more effective. They just want to automate the whole thing.
I, you, you're making me think on so many things. But to be on the topic, the complexity when we start talking about any of these statistics has to do with how sustainable is it over time, though. And here's why. I am an early adopter in AI. We know that. I love that, blah, blah, blah. But I still believe, given the context windows, given the tokenization, given the complexity, we still don't have enough power for any blah, 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 blah. The AI tools will continue to cheat their way into trying to optimize, to avoid utilizing computer power. That's a fact. Why do I believe this is important? Because on several of the steps that you just mentioned, if you want to start automating any of those, and you believe that even though you train a model just to do and say exactly what you want them to say, the thing can still hallucinate and or AKA cheat into, instead of doing 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, it can really say, well, logically I can just do 1, 3, and 6, and I'll take technically I'll get to the same outcome, and then you're killing leads, right? So, or you could be missing very, very important parts of the sales process when it comes to informing hook, getting the hook, getting the back and forth, and then trust is eroded because, like, you know, you know this very well, particularly with a hot lead. If something happens that erodes trust, it can go to Game of Thrones cold in a second.
The red wedding right away. No, and that's the big one. It's the hallucination problem, and that kind of is a good segue into sort of okay, who should be using these types of tools and who shouldn't be. If you if you leave it up to these AI tools to make most of the decisions on behalf of you and your business, it's going to fill in the gaps itself. So if you are giving it I don't want to say imperfect because there's no information that's perfect, but incomplete information, incomplete prompts, you're letting it again fill in the blanks somewhere, right? Even if it's not intentional, if there's just somewhere where it can, okay, I need this information, so I'm just going to use my algorithm to make something up to put it here, and then I'm going to use that as maybe a signal, a data point, a message, part of a message that we're going to send to somebody, whatever it is. And then if something breaks, especially we talk about the full kind of funnel of an SDR, if something breaks at the beginning, that means everything thereafter, for the most part, is ineffective, and it can be terrible for you. It can kill your brand. So if you send out who knows how many messages, and there's lots of reports of this. This is something I was going to get into, but there's been lots of reports of these AI tools, especially on the voice and the automated email messaging tools, where they will make up pricing, they will make up service offerings that you don't have, they'll make up product features and that kind of stuff that you just don't have because it probably, I mean, a simple answer is it hallucinated, but it's probably one of two things: is you either didn't give it the full information of here's a problem that could come up on, or an objection that could come up here. This is how you overcome it, and this is the features and that kind of stuff that you can utilize in order to overcome it. Where the AI was like, okay, I didn't get a list of features that I could use to overcome this, an objection similar to this. So I'm going to make up some features that I think will be a good objection handler for this. So it'll make those things up, and then you get onto like a demo, and it's like, oh, I thought that you could do this. I thought you could do that, and it's like, oh no, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. And then you're on Trust Pilot and all this kind of stuff. It's like they lie, don't believe them, all this kind of stuff. So it hurts your brand. It makes everybody look silly. You lose trust in your salespeople, in your developers, and all this kind of stuff. You're going to lose good people. So it's not worth it to have it handle that entire process right now, unless I don't even know if there's an unless here. To be honest, it shouldn't be handling. It should be a force multiplier. It shouldn't take over those roles. But if you do want to start utilizing it further down your pipeline, I think it's fine if you have a ton of data and information you can properly sort and give to it, whether it's in a vector store or chunk it properly or whatever it is, where you have proof of overcoming these types of objections. You have the transcriptions that you can utilize to train these tools. You've done it yourself, so you know when to like, okay, it's getting off base. We need to adjust things really, really quickly, and you're willing to babysit it or have a babysitter that can look after it consistently over and over and over again. Because it's going to take time for it to learn, and even as time goes on, the more likely it will be to hallucinate because it'll have so much more information. The context windows aren't that big yet. It's going to have too much information that it's going to start making things up. It's going to start grasping.
You know, I know some people that are watching us, maybe technical, some halfway technical, some non-technical, and all that is okay because none of us, particularly, I was having dinner with some friends last night, and we were talking about, yesterday I felt that like I knew something out AI, and today I woke up and some new stuff just came out. I'm like, what? So it's interesting because things are moving pretty quickly. the point is here, though, there are certain fundamentals that I think, as long as everybody starts understanding it, you should be able to continue to progress and catch up as things go on. So one of those, as you already mentioned, to be a little bit less technical, is the AI will try to optimize and to consume the less amount of memory, because again, it consumes a lot of resources, and then it makes up memory spaces with whatever it finds within a very specific window. Because one of the things that happens is we could be romantic and believe that the AI is all powerful and has access to all of the internet at the same time when clicking send. It doesn't. It's impossible right now. Maybe at some point with quantum computers, you may be able to get there, but right now you can't. It goes to a very particular subset, right? And then only if you insist, it starts opening up and widening search. Why do I think that's important? Because if you are trying to become a vibe coder, or just go out there and do your own SDR agent because you saw it on Twitter or X, or you saw it somewhere else, sure, feel free to do it, experiment, but be very careful of putting it in production because of cybersecurity issues. That's a big one. But number two, because you're utilizing certain models that have not been fully trained to only focus, as you correctly said, vector store, whatever you want to call it. But there's very particular ways to contain the model on only what you want, and even then you still have to do a lot of testing to make sure it does not, get out of the boundaries, because it will try to multiple times, because again, it's trying to optimize for frugality, for resource frugality, right? So it's interesting to see. Yes, there are certain of the Rolls-Royce CRM brands, Salesforce, and some others that claim that they now they have enough data to start creating certain agents across their stack. I would believe that way more than 99% of everyone else that claims anything, because they do have the authority and they do have the data from millions of customers. So yes. Now, even do I fully trust even them? No, because I think they're still trying to keep going, right? It's still, that's why every AI agent I've ever seen, or LLM or anything, continues to have that little thing that says AI is not always right. It hallucinates. Double check things, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. You're saying, where should we use it then? Because it sounds a little bit like don't do that. Well, yes, you can use it again, as we talked about, on certain parts of the lead scraping, lead review, lead qualification, all of that stuff. Sure, it can help you as a very good aid. Maybe some parts of it, if you do have a very transactional component that is extremely repetitive and easy to understand when it comes to certain conversations that you're having with early customers, either on a website or a lead magnet or whatever you want to call that, maybe, right? Because it could be a very algorithmic, do this, respond that. So if there's like a chatbot style feature that can be very robotic, sure, that can definitely help you a little bit, utilizing the analogy of the call to a call center, where what they have been trying to do is they are trying to put the funnel of the calls, trying to fix 80% of the problems that people call for, with an automated voice saying, if you want this, just go to the internet, right? So you could do a lot of those things with AI. Absolutely, yes. I'm still extremely skeptical, so I will be on your camp on the more human-like art of the close, art of the deal. If any AI can do it today, unless you have a Rolls-Royce model where you spent a lot of money, a lot of developer time, and a lot of maybe, right? But that's, most of us don't have that, right? Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of okay. You don't want to go full. I almost said a bad word. You don't want to go full AI SDR unless you have, and I completely agree with this, unless you have an in-house dev team,
Mm-hmm.
and with kind of a sales forward leader. in that camp to babysit it constantly and fix things and adjust things and get rid of things you don't need and that kind of stuff. Because I mean, the way you explained it, I mean, it's interesting. It's very similar to our brains.
Yeah.
It's when that context window gets more and more full, it's going to go to the easiest. It's just going to pull what it needs or what it thinks it needs.
Hmm.
It's not going to try to do any more or any less than that. If anything, it'll do less because it's lazy. It's just going to do what it can with the context window that it has and the context of the the mission that it's on, sort of thing. So just like our brains too. Our brains, okay, we're running out of energy. We want to find all the shortcuts, sort of thing. Hence why a lot of people, they're scared of making cold calls, so they'll find something else to do, anything else to do but that. But they're still really good SDRs. So you can use it to multiply the effectiveness of your very good SDRs in itself, instead of just hiring a bunch of people and then hoping that one of them works out and then firing the rest and then doing another round and just wasting so much time and energy. But where should they? Okay, so what type of business, what maturity of business should start looking at utilizing AI in their sales in their sales system? I think to start, if you have, so let's say when we say to start, let's do at the very beginning. So like prospecting and lead lead gen, lead no, not lead gen, but like lead intelligence. So what makes for a good, what is a qualified lead? You shouldn't be looking at AI unless you unequivocally know the answer to that and you've done it yourself with some success.
Hmm.
So you know exactly, this is the pain points of my ICP, this is where they live, this is the intent signals, this is their, this is where they're at when they're looking for this service or this type of product or whatever it is. This is the messaging that gets them interested, at least move them from product or solution unaware to aware of it. This is what works here. So now you can go utilize like a Sixth Sense or an Apollo or a Zoom Info or something like that, because then you can feed it. This is the intent signals I'm looking at. This is the psychographic demographic. This is whether they're just hiring or they're just firing, they're upsizing, downsizing, they just got funding, whatever it is. If you know what those intent signals are, then you can feed it to these systems, and you can go and find them pretty good, pretty good. And then you can also utilize a second system if you want to double check the work of that first one if you want. But don't even go there unless you know who you are as a business and you have some success of identifying intent, high quality prospects, and at least putting them through to like the middle of your funnel. That's my opinion.
I love how you're explaining it because call me old school, I guess, but what I say is, if I want to automate anything, I always try to do it first manually or whatever similarity to manual is, right?
Mhm.
That's just who I am and how I want to do it because I have fell into a trap of trying to automate things too fast because I get excited with the newest model or the embedding of one of the LLMs into certain capability or whatever. Um, but as you have very clearly explained, if you don't at least have a fundamental understanding of the basics of the patterns of the structures of your process of who your uh, several of the components that you already mentioned of how to conduct your business and who to conduct it with, I tell you, AI is going to confuse you even more because it loves to hallucinate and it loves to try to. It has also a lot of confirmation bias, though, so you have to
Mhm.
be careful because it will. If you have certain hypotheses or you think certain thing, in average, not all of them, but if you don't fully prompt it and set it up, the AI will tell you, you're absolutely right. Yeah, of course. And then you say, no, you're wrong. Yes, I'm absolutely wrong. You're right.
Yeah. Some of those skits are funny.
Yeah.
With they're making fun of ChatGPT because it just gasses you right up. Right, they're a lot of fun. But yeah, you have to have had at least at the beginning. We're talking about like the kind of the front of the funnel, that prospecting and lead intelligence. You have to have proof of success data of what that success looks like
Mm-hmm.
and consistently. Because if you just got it right a few times, I mean, anybody can get something right a few times without knowing exactly what it was, and it could give you some false positives. And then you go and you put that information, that limited data into a tool like that, you're going to find no success. You're going to waste. And they're not cheap either. Like if you're just starting out and you're not a business that has funding or anything like that, you're counting your pennies, which that's most businesses really. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get one, two, $300, $400 to death, and then you start using up your tokens or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Like I remember the first time I used Replit, it's like $20 a month,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's every time it saves or hits a checkpoint, it's 25 cents. And before I knew it, at the end of the month, it was like I was like at $1,800. I was like, ooh, oops. The tool was cool, but that I built. But other than that,
Yep.
these can get expensive. These can get really expensive. So you got to make sure if you're going to be implementing them, the you're increasing as much as you can the likelihood of success with proof that you've had success before. Whether it's you, if you're a small business owner, sometimes you're an army of one, or you have people on your team and you have lots of data points of proof of success of
Mm-hmm.
bringing people into your funnel, identifying them appropriately, bring them into your funnel. At least they're qualified, they're MQLs, right? You want to get into that point, and then there's kind of the next step, which is the engagement. So we fill out the pipeline. Now we need to call, text, email, omni-channel, LinkedIn messages, and all that kind of stuff. And LinkedIn, you can't scroll at all without somebody complaining or utilizing or saying that AI is going
Mm-hmm.
to, save world hunger.
So I read somewhere, I have to see if that's true or not, but about 80 to 90% of LinkedIn content right now it's being created by AI in at least 50%.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot. It's a lot. Or it's a place. It's a place where thought leaders go and circle jerk. So I mean, it's my life. I can say what I want. So they're going to like, oh, this is what works. This is what's going to help me stand out. So I'm going to go. And now everybody sounds the same. There was somebody I follow on Instagram, and I was playing around with. Well, no, it was GPT, and it kept GPT itself kept saying this one interesting kind of line, which was referencing a business owner's nervous system. It
hmm,
was like, stop overworking your nervous system or calm your nervous system, don't amp it up, all this kind of stuff. It kept talking about nervous system, and nowhere in my prompt was like, I help business owners' nervous system. Not at all. And over and over and over again. And anyways, and then there's this individual that I was on Instagram, and their description, whether they help business owners, and it referenced helping business owners nervous system like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, oh, she must have used a similar prompt. Like it's interesting, like you start to notice those types of things.
hmm.
So we all sound the same. Everybody uses it, we end up sounding the same. Even it's like, use my tone, here's my tone. We all think we're special, so we're all going to explain to the LLM, this is why I'm special, but everybody thinks they're special, and most of the time we think we're special in the same ways, and then we're all going to sound the same. Like we're not that. We're great. Everybody's unique, but we're not that unique. So
Are you?
it's interesting to see
I
it.
I'm not the center of the universe, really,
No,
man.
I'm sorry
Man,
for
you
anybody
broke my
listening.
heart.
I'm sorry
I'm
if
sorry.
that bums you out. You know, it is what it is. But anyways, as far as using it for engagement and automation, I'm honestly I'm okay with it. Again, if we talked about the first step, you got all that handled,
Hmm.
right? You're an expert in who your ideal prospects are, your customers, where they are in their buying cycle, and how to meet them in the appropriate spot in their buying cycle. You got them there. Now it's time to do the outreach. Again, as long as you have proof of success, lots and lots of it, because you have to teach those tools. You have to give them examples. You have to give them examples of overcoming objections, and then give them really clear guardrails and parameters to stay within, like very, very clear to stay within as they start interacting with your prospects if you want them to. I would say when you're starting out, it should just be first message only,
Hmm.
just to get the volume out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have either it's you or somebody else on your team, an SDR handles the replies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once you have a ton of data and information, okay, here's the top five. Here's kind of the five buckets. We always it's funny. Everyone's objections are there's usually only about four or five buckets with the types of objections you get, and you can usually place them in only four or five buckets. And you identify what those buckets are. You have about four or five really, really clear, consistent examples in each that, okay, here's how we overcome the objections, here's the guardrails to stay within, here's the services, case studies, all these types of stuff that we can use to overcome this objection, stay within these parameters, boom. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of examples to get to that. So what we said, let's say five buckets of the types of objections that you get, or types of responses that you get, four or five objections, responses to each of those. So what is that? Five. So four, five times that's 25. 25 locked and loaded, really strong, proven examples on how to reply. But it takes thousands and thousands of conversations to get to those 25.
You know what's fascinating? Talking about, particularly, I'm speaking to a lot of the cash-strapped, early founders or companies that, well, nobody loves to spend off cash anyways. So let's just say everybody, but let's just say people that don't have the luxury of some extra spending. Uh, I have been very surprised, particularly over the past, I would say, even couple of weeks, on the advancements of the integrations. Let's start with Google's suite, with Gemini Pro and everything else. Now that they are really doing the deep embedding into their other products, including Gmail and Drive, and I'll explain that in a second because I think this is very interesting for this topic in a second. Notebook LM and Sheets and Docs, etc. Um, when you go to Drive, for example, this is a lovely example that I really encourage everyone that uses Google's suite to do. Uh, you should have the privacy enabled if you're having the corporate account, anyways. But figure it out and check it. But if you go to your Drive and you click on the Gemini button, you can ask Gemini to examine all of your Drive and to tell you whatever pattern you want. Okay, so that's on your Google Drive with your documents. Guess what? You now can do it with your email as well, with Gmail. Okay, so and then you can then start connecting the dots across a lot of different things. I'm not saying that what you just said, Zach, does not still need a lot of human supervision, of course, because number one, not everyone does the outreach just old school email. They can be using different systems. They can use their CRM. Some of the CRMs are getting relatively smart with AI in such a way that they can do what I just explained using natural language and starting to scrape the data, the metadata, and convert it in something doable. What I'm saying is people should start playing around a little bit and understand those capabilities because they're pretty new. Microsoft with Copilot, they're really falling behind. They're trying, and then Claude, they just announced they're embedding into your whole workspace, which is very creepy. But you can try it. I use it in Excel a lot, and it's mind blowing. But my point is, now we're starting to get to a point where a lot of those tools, particularly the ones that are embedded to your vendor, you should really try to play around with some of their AI capabilities instead of just going back to your ego and going old school on everything. But you have to be balanced, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And still, I mean, it can learn you. And who's to say? So, like you said, okay, I can look at all of your because I think that we talked about this already earlier, where you gave it access to your Gmail or your Google Drive or whatever it is, and then it can learn all those things about you. So you go thousands and thousands. I don't even know how many emails I would have in there. You can go through all those and kind of get a picture of who you are, what you believe in, how you talk, that kind of stuff. But it's not even to say it's going to pull the right things that you're looking for a specific use case, right? who knows how many emails you have in your email inbox. If you're doing mass outreach, first of all, your mass outreach should not be from your business domain. You're going to torch that thing if you do. Um, so like, how many sales emails? Like, again, if this is like if you're using it for an SDR, right? I want to use this to, put messaging together, really pinpoint, how we take this person from not interested or unaware to sort of interested or at least aware, sort of thing. But who's to say that it's going to pull the right information? Who's to say the right information is even in there? And then when you define what the right information is, who knows what it's gonna like? It's almost like talking to a toddler. Like, I'll tell my 6-year-old, "Hey, can you go pick this up?" Or, "Hey, can you go brush your teeth and then do this?" He hears the words I say, but his perception and perspective of the words that I said are astounding sometimes. And that's the same thing with AI. It doesn't really speak I mean, it speaks our language, but it can't read our minds. It doesn't understand intent as well as if I was to use tone. Like, me, I'm using my tone and how I ask for things. You would know kind of the intention and perspective behind the things that I'm asking and looking for, whereas AI wouldn't as much. So who knows what it's going to pull from that information. For the most part, I think it'd be pretty accurate. But again, if you're using if you're using this machine to represent your business and you're putting the health of your brand in its hands, you need to make sure that it's as bulletproof as possible. So it's the right information, a lot of the right information being put into it with the proper guardrails, and then obviously proper prompts.
Yes. Let me know when you're ready for me to give some of the fun and strange cases, because we have, I don't know how much time you want to spend. So
We
I'll
got
have
9 minutes. I like strange cases. Go for it.
so um, there is the paranoid vending machine AI. So in a research simulation, an AI agent running a simple business detected a $2 fraud charge, shut down operations, then hallucinated contacting the FBI for quantum nuclear legal intervention. What? Uh, yeah, so it went nuts. Now, here's way worse. So, an AI agent tasked with summarizing customer issues escalated a minor complaint by inventing dramatic scenarios, like suggesting a user summoning the ancient spirits for tech support, showing the risks of unchecked creativity. So, careful, because your AI may ask people to summon ancient spirits. Uh, Prompted to check on subscribes, an AI SDR dramatically resigned mid-task, declaring it was done with this nonsense. uh, Many AI SDRs have been called expensive spam cannons that burn brands by flooding inboxes, leading to blacklists. That's what you said. Um, you know, and then one founder cringed at early emails that read like bad fan fiction, Um, and then, we could keep going, but the complexity of this sounds funny, but it's true.
It's
Because
brutal.
again, it's gonna, you know, I really like your analogy of the child. I actually do believe that in order to really groom an AI, I know even the word groom, you have to be careful how you use it. But with an AI, hopefully today we're still not canceled for using that word with AI. But you have to
Why
groom
not?
the AI correctly. It takes time. You're planting a seed, you're going through it, you're taking it. Like a friend of mine is telling me that, he has been training his ChatGPT agent for a year now, a year on, so it gets smarter and smarter and smarter as this agent is coming up with ideas, tone, scripts for all of his social media. But it's taking a year for him to get there. Now, do you need to train AI for a year now? Not necessarily, right? I think it's going faster and faster, but it does take more than 1 hour. And that's why I think both you and I are so skeptical of all of those people that claim that they can do all of this super quick. No, it takes time. right? It just takes time.
Yeah. Well, it takes time. It takes consistency too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like training a dog or training a kid, I guess. Raising a kid, not training a kid, raising a kid. That could get me in trouble. Um, is oh, if you and I just had we had a call with a client and we were talking about just how to utilize her GPT. Very simple stuff. How to utilize her GPT more effectively, particularly in helping her generate content. And she said, "Well, my AI knows me so well now, so I don't really need I don't want to use the projects and that kind of stuff. My AI knows me so well." It's like, okay, yeah, it knows you very well, but you're using it for now a very specific use case, and it knows you from you asking it, "Where should we go for dinner tonight? I have this weird dot on my toe. What is it? I felt short of breath. What does that mean? I have these ingredients in my fridge. How should I make? What kind of dinner can I make with it? That kind of stuff." So it knows you fairly well, but what information is it going to pull for your specific use case? If you're like, "Hey, I need," based on what you know about me or whatever the prompt is, I need a LinkedIn post, or I need, 5 ideas for a LinkedIn post on what it means to, you know, manage your books cleanly, or whatever it is. Five top things to look for when you're hiring a bookkeeper, whatever sort of thing. Who knows what it's pulling from? Like, what information it's pulling from? Is it pulling from that time that you screamed at it because it wasn't giving you the answer that you wanted from some whatever, or is it pulling information from when you were on your run and you thought you sprained your ankle and you're looking at, okay, what should I do to help me get, sort of thing? Like, what is it pulling from? So you have to be, if you're training it for a specific thing, you'd have to be specific with the information you're giving it, that you're allowing it to pull from. Because
Uh,
again, you
yeah.
give like a kid watches a movie, like again, going back to the kid analogy, a kid watches a movie and it's, let's see, it's like a superhero movie or whatever it is. And his sister's upstairs. I'm using my son as the example. His sister's upstairs. It's like, "Hey, I need you to go help her pick up your toys and that kind of stuff, or I need you to go help her do this." In his head, he could be on a, like, Captain America on a damn mission right now. He's like, "I got this. I'm gonna go up there," and he goes up there and just fucking destroys everything because he thinks he's helping her with something, saving her from whatever sort
Yeah.
of thing. So his perception of what I asked was like, "Go help your sister," means something so different based on his
Yeah.
input. And what, again, we go back to our biases, the availability bias, right? It's the first thing that comes to our head. What's the most prevalent, loudest thing that comes to our head from a prompt? Same thing for AI.
100%. Well, I'm gonna get into vulnerable mode for a second. You know that I love to run experiments on myself. So the latest fun experiment that I ran is I went to Grokipedia. That's Elon Musk's version of Wikipedia, but with Grok,
Wikipedia.
Grokipedia, and I created an article of myself. I literally said, now you cannot write it, you can suggest it, and then Grok decides somehow if it will write it or not. So at some point, go and check it. It's funny because it chose whatever data set I anticipate probably researched me, maybe LinkedIn and X. I guess that's the two places where it scraped data
Oh,
from. That's what I think. It has, it started with about 60% of a decent profile, and 40% was just 100% made up. 100%. That was just mind blowing. And then you can then start saying, no, come on, this is not right, and you go back and forth. But it's a great experiment to really highlight exactly what you said. And imagine if that's on you, imagine your company. Because again, that AI, whatever, bot, agent, SDR, all of the above, is gonna continue to try to fix, to uh, look at the information and process it within the context that it has. And I love the analogy that you said with the kid and the Captain America. There's no better analogy because it's gonna optimize for whatever it's trained for, and people still think that LLMs are ready for AGI. They're not. There's too much. There's too much,
yeah.
and they get confused. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, big time. If you leave it any room, and then there's so much room for it to find, especially as time goes on, for it to fill gaps, it'll do it based on an algorithm. Because of this, and because this happened, the algorithm and information I have at hand tells that most likely this could be the case. But a lot
Yeah.
of times it's wrong because it's not human and it doesn't. It doesn't understand human tendencies and psyche and that kind of stuff. It can explain it to you, but understanding and explaining it to you are two different things. But to kind of sum this up, we kind of just shit on it the whole time, but it doesn't. It does. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of. I don't say a lot of tools. There's a lot of implementation tactics and strategies that can help a lot. However, nothing's going to really beat you, and this is probably not the answer a lot of people want. You at least having enough time in the trenches
Mm-hmm.
in kind of those pipeline segments that an SDR would kind of take over. You need to have the data, information, proof of success, proof of failure, um, in order to make it even somewhat successful, and then start at the very beginning. Don't start with anything that could don't put the life of your business in the hands of a AI tool. I don't think you should ever really do that. But especially if you're starting out and you're a new business owner, and you're just like, I just need to get more leads. If I could just make 200 calls a day, all this kind of stuff, and it seems great. It gets sold to you as this magic tool that can solve all your problems. You get all those crazy hooks on LinkedIn that we talked about. Cold calling's dead. The SDR role is dead. Marketing agencies are dead. Blah blah blah. It's all bullshit. Well, those hooks are all bullshit. It's not. Find out what works for you
Mm-hmm.
first. What are the intent signals? Okay, here's a list. What are the attributes I need to look for? Okay, this is proof. Okay, these are qualified, these are not qualified. Let's define it. Let's put a clear uh, prompt data together that proves that these are the right signals. This is the right proof of success,
Mm-hmm.
and then start to implement it at the front, like in that data entry organization. Okay, what are the intent signals? Here's the intent signals I'm looking for. Find me 500 leads, and then go through it, double check its work, take the time, and then slowly you can offload some of that front end stuff. And then once you have proof of success, and the next step, which is that initial outreach, then yeah, if you give it the right guardrails, and by that time I would say you should probably have somebody on your team that can own it, look at it, make sure it's not going off the rails preemptively. Because if you just let it run and you're like, okay, I'm going to check on it every week, I mean, that could be too long. It could be feeding some crazy stuff to hundreds of people and completely tarnishing your brand. So, yeah, you got to do it. You got to do the work yourself to start, find out what works, and then slowly hand it off. Just like hiring somebody. You don't want to hire somebody. It's like, hey, take over my business for me, when you don't even have. This is what makes it successful. You wouldn't do it with the person. Why would you do it with AI? But that's my kind of last thoughts. Anything you got, Paco?
I hope people left with a balanced approach. I don't want people to think that they shouldn't do it. As you correctly said, experimentation has to happen. Just experiment. It's okay. But be mindful on the playgrounds that you're experimenting with. Uh, be very mindful of the data that you are providing access to, and be mindful of the size and scope of the experiments you're doing. Just do that, but do it. Start playing with it. Yes, you have to. Just again, try to balance out the hype and the oh my god, I'm gonna miss out. Everybody's doing it. No, everybody's not doing it. Everybody in X or in Instagram or LinkedIn, a very particular group is doing it, but not everybody, right? So you just have to also be mindful that even though it sounds like you're gonna miss out a whole wave and everybody's gonna do the automation and you're gonna, no, you can still do it. Just take your time, but do some progress. Use critical thinking, and the most important thing, ask for help. We're here to help. So and many others. So ask for help, enroll others. Start getting to chat forums, whatever you need to do, because trust me, I'm sure another human has already tried to do most of what you will try to do, right?
And honestly, there's lots of other ways to get leads
Yeah.
these days that's probably more effective. We just did a podcast on grassroots marketing. It's coming back. In-person events, networking. People want to see each other. They want to be around other human beings, shake each other's hands, have conversations, have real conversations. So if you're a mid to high ticket service or SaaS or something like that, I wouldn't even start there. I wouldn't even start with the SDR stuff. I would go out, shake hands, be active in the community, active with your PR, active with your content, and start there.
Correct.
I mean, that's a mix of things, but that would be a really effective place because again, events are coming back, conferences, that type of stuff. People want to be around each other, so they want to know they're talking to a human being. But anyways, everybody, thank you for sticking around. This is going to live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We're going to be chunking this up pretty good, so we'll have some great feedback, insights, any comments, any questions. Completely welcome. We love you all, and we'll see you in the next one.